Hello, I'm Jessie Ramey, and I'm an associate professor of women and gender studies and history at Chatham University.
And I'm Amelia Golcheski, and I'm a PhD candidate at Emory University. We're going to walk you through a portion of the website called Kipp Dawson, The Struggle is the Victory. This is a collaborative project built by a team of independent scholars, faculty, students, and technologists at Carnegie Mellon University, Chatham University, Emory University, and West Virginia University.
Kipp Dawson is an activist, a former coal miner, and educator who organized on the front lines of nearly every major social movement since the 1950s. She participated in and helped to lead some of the largest and most well-known sit-ins, campaigns, rallies that led to some really crucial victories. But the movement's constantly sustained defeats and setbacks. And Dawson's own social identities, she's a lesbian, Jewish, working class woman from a multiracial family, frequently meant that she faced government surveillance, harassment, intra-movement bigotry, and violence.
Our goal with this website is to provide access to Dawson's story through her own words, writing, photographs, documents, and movement ephemera, as well as historical context and analysis. This project draws from two new archives that our team helped assemble: the Kipp Dawson Papers, now at the University of Pittsburgh, and the Women Miners Oral History Project at the West Virginia Regional History Center. Nearly all of the images and videos you will see are from these two rich news sources.
Just a quick note on our theoretical framework here, which drives the digital choices we made in this project. We're using an intersectional feminist lens to view Dawson's really remarkable activism, and we suggest a rethinking of leadership within social movements through a framework we're calling Women's Radical Collaboration.
As we show you the website, we're going to point out some of the ways that we have used digital tools to emphasize our historical arguments. For example, you may have already noticed that our choice of images underscores the way in which women work together in US social movements. So you're almost always going to see Dawson with her collaborators.
Amelia and I created the love, joy, and hope part of the site that we're going to share with you today. This was peer-reviewed by the American Historical Review and accepted for publication in their first special all-digital edition of the journal.
For this part of the project, Jessie and I created 6 story maps about Dawson's work in 6 social movements. You can see that we have those maps linked here to our homepage, but we're going to show you what they look like in the love, joy, and hope portion of the site in just a moment.
All right, so we're in the love, joy, and hope section of the website. And in thinking about the theme of this special issue, we were interested in what resilience looks like in social movements. One of our big questions is, how do activists keep going when it gets hard? And specifically, what tools have they used to deal with the constant losses and even violent repression?
You'll notice we answered that question with our title about love, joy, and hope. And we started this section with a short essay about what we think love, joy, and hope look like as tools in movement building. We really like this image because it illustrates all 3 concepts.
As we're scrolling through the essay, I want to point out the visual styling of this site. So I'll keep scrolling down here. Our inspiration was really graphic novels. You know, it's actually tempting to think about Dawson and her many collaborators as superheroes or the stuff of comic books. But we didn't want to put her on that pedestal. In fact, Dawson herself would hate that because she always said that she was doing this movement work with ordinary people struggling together. So it's always about working with others. So we wanted a lot of movement and color with parallax scrolling over key images to give the user really a chance to look at those images. And we're using some of the visual techniques of graphic novels here.
At the bottom of this short essay, we have a video of Dawson explaining her spiral theory of movement history. and how activists can have hope to keep going. And then users have a choice of story maps to explore. These are laid out as a grid of tiles that let users click into any story map in any order they want. And this was really important to us since the movements are represented here as separate maps in roughly chronological order. But the movements were anything but discrete and separate. They overlapped in messy, exciting, and surprising ways. We didn't want our visual metaphors to reproduce long-held distortions in the way that we view social movements.
Right. We've really been inspired by scholars of the long civil rights movement who've placed that freedom struggle in conversation with others beyond the 1960s. And we want it to illustrate the concept of a movement of movement. So that's what we're getting at here visually. So this is one attempt to use the digital tools to capture these more nuanced historical arguments about chronology and the interrelationship of movements. At the same time, we wanted to use some of the powerful elements of digital tools, including the ability to visualize data in ways that move beyond our usual written medium as historians. In this case, we're adding a geographical and spatial dimension to the evidence.
We chose to create story maps on a platform developed at Northwestern University. And each story map is like a slideshow with text and images, even videos, all embedded into the map. Then we embed the map into our site. For instance, we are looking at the civil rights movement right now. Each map starts with a brief overview and invites the user to start exploring. Users can click on pins in the map to move around the content in any order, or they can click through the slides in the order we have provided, which is chronological.
So the map is animated, and as you click through the slides, you're moved through both time and space. And again, you can choose to follow the arrows forwards or backwards, or you can go to a map overview or jump back to the beginning. I'll click through a few more slides to give you a sense of what this looks like. You'll notice that we're able to provide street address level detail or a more zoomed out view here on these maps.
Just a note here on Universal Design for Learning, or UDL. All of our images have alternative text and the video clips are fully captioned. We worked with the technologist on our project to make sure we were thinking constantly about accessibility and particularly the principles of intersectional feminist design. We also want to note the planning around data ethics and data management for this project. Our team has particularly been thinking about issues of consent, context, and access. Consent, of course, includes concerns familiar to historians working with traditional print sources, like careful attention to copyright, attribution, and photo permissions.
Yes, and consent was also important as we worked to digitize the archival materials and oral histories, as we had to consider whether those who created the records and the people depicted in those records would consent to having them made widely available through digital distribution. It's one thing to have your materials available in an archive and quite another to have them digitized and available on a website, which broadens access in a way that may not always be welcome. And because Dawson was an activist, worked with hundreds of other activists and movements that experienced violent resistance, government surveillance, and harassment, these issues of consent and digital distribution are non-trivial. They really required us to think beyond the letter of copyright law. For instance, to think about safety for historically marginalized people when making decisions about what materials to include.
At the bottom of each page with the story map, you will see our grid of images representing the social movements. You can move in any order you want to visit the different movements. And depending on which movement you are currently viewing, our grid swaps in a tile that will take you back to the love, joy, and hope landing page. We're also using top and bottom main menus, so you can navigate to other parts of the site from here as well.
So go back to the love, joy, and hope section, and we'll end our tour here and invite you to visit the website yourself to learn more about how these affective and emotional qualities of love, joy, and hope help to build resiliency in U.S. social movements. We're planning new components for the project and hope you will return and learn more about Dawson and her collaborators, their struggles for freedom and equality, and their vision for a better world for all.